Hi and welcome to my channel. My name is Bryndis, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about the books that I read in April. I had 10 books on my TBR or pile of possibilities for April, and I actually read 7. One of them was not on my TBR originally. The ones that I did not read were Elias alias Grace. I had learned how to say this name. Elias or Alias Grace by Margaret Atwood. And the reason I didn't read or listen to it was because the audiobook that I have is actually a abridged version, so a shortened version, and I don't do that. So it's so annoying. I don't want to do that. So I just like, okay, I will just do that another time at some point when I have the full book in my possession. And then the other book that I decided not to read because I just did not have I just didn't want to, was The Unbearable Lightness of Being by this book. I think this is actually a super interesting book, I think, but I didn't get around to it basically. And like I said, I think in my April TBR, April is just I knew that April was going to be a tricky month, so I kind of knew that I wasn't going to get to all of these books. But so what I'm going to do because these books I had picked from my TBR jars, I will just, I kept the little thingies and I will put them back into the jars for later rather than carry them over to May, because they're just, I didn't really want to, especially not, obviously the Margaret Atwood book is just gone from my TBR jar, but the other one I'm gonna put back because I do want to read that or listen to that as an audiobook at some point. And I actually did see a copy of that book translated into Icelandic at the charity shop the other day, so maybe I will buy it there and just read it as a translated into Icelandic copy instead of translated into English. So we'll see what I do. I haven't quite decided what I'm gonna do, but at least I did not, I definitely did not read it in April. So here's the books that I did indeed read in April, and I'm gonna just go through them in the order that I read them. I kind of find that it makes sense for me. The first book that I finished was Dubliners by James Joyce. So this is a collection of short stories, 15 short stories, and that take place in Dublin. I read this physical copy of the book, took it with me because I went to Ireland in the beginning of April and I was in Dublin, among other places, and I'm thinking that I might do a longer review, like a review video of this book. But yeah, so it was written, I think, in the late 1800s, so I think it takes place in Dublin in like 1890s. And oh my god, it is so good. It is so good. It is so bleak and miserable. This would be if you're taking part in Misery May, this would actually fit very well with that miserable books that make you miserable, because all of these stories are just so miserable. Life is horrible, and yeah, it's very bleak. But I love it. I really loved it. I enjoyed it so much. James Joyce's writing in these stories, at least, is so good. And I mean, I love Dublin. I lived in Dublin for a semester when I was doing my master's degree, and I've been there a couple of times, and obviously I was there this April, and I find I don't know, it's so good. There are, like of the 15, I would say that there are 4 that really stand out to me as just such great short stories. But there was no story there here that I thought was boring or that I didn't enjoy. And I just really, the only thing that I didn't like about this book is the fact that the stories are so short. I feel like almost all of them, majority of them, I would have liked to read as a novel. They were just so compelling, the story or the glimpse of the plot or the story that you got or the lives of the characters. I mean, the first story is about this young boy. It's called The Sisters. This young boy who finds out that a priest in his neighborhood has died, and you can just know that that priest was not very good to young boys, for sure. Oh my God, that's it. The first one, it just like, whoa! It was like being kicked in the head by a horse. Oh my God! It just, you were in that child's head and feeling that the terror mingled with the hope, like the terror of people finding out what the priest did, and the hope that he was actually dead. Like, it was so good. And I mean, there's a lot of violence like that, and poverty and mistreatment, so it's very miserable, but it's so good. Oh my God, it's so good. So if I do like a proper review of this book, or my thoughts and review is not a proper review. I'm not a literary critic, so I don't do like that type of review, but it's basically my thoughts and opinions type of review. If I do it, at least you know in advance that it's gonna be very positive, because this was so good. The second book that I read and finished was The Empire of the Damned by J. Christoph. I listened to this as an audiobook, and I really did enjoy it very much. It's a very good audiobook. So it is the second in, I think actually it might be a trilogy. So I'm not gonna give anything away in regards to the plot or whatever, but it's a vampire book. There are vampires, and then there is the main character, who is Gabriel, and he is what is called a silver saint, and I think he's like half vampire, and he's a vampire hunter basically. He's like belongs to this religious order basically of silver saints who go around killing vampires. And it's like, obviously it's a very complicated plot, but that's kind of the gist of it, really. And the vampires in this, they're so good. The vampires, they're horrific, horrible. Oh my God, so cruel, but they're so good. That's vampires. That's how vampires should be. Vampires are not fluffy little things. They are, and it's so good. Yeah, it's so good. And I like the plot. The characters are mostly very interesting. The plot is, I mean, it's not super fast paced, but it's not necessarily slow. It's just the right pace, basically. And it's just very good. I mean, there were a couple of things that I didn't like about this book in particular. So there were a couple of descriptions that were happening within like the different scenes that felt very like movie script description. Like he's hoping, I think Christoph is hoping that this is gonna be like a mini series on Netflix or something, because there were some descriptions that I was just like, do we write like that in novels? Is this not? I don't know. It didn't feel that kind of whoa. It like pulled me out of the story. And then also in this book, there are some sex scenes. Just so you know. And I mean, this is extremely violent book. Extremely violent. This is not for sensitive people or young people or whatever. Like, it's the violence, the killings, but and then he's writing these sex scenes and they are just so bad. Like, I don't mind juicy sex scenes, like, and it made sense within the plot that there were like some juicy sex scenes there with the characters that were having sex. It made sense that they would do that, and the way they had sex also made sense in the book, because it was just something that I imagine if you are like running from vampires, maybe you would like to do that. I don't know. Thankfully, I've never been in that situation, but Christoph does not write very good sex scenes. I was just like transported back to when I was in my early adult years reading these extremely bad, sleazy, cringy, red series love stories that, like the throbbing, the spurting. No, it was so bad. It was so bad. I think he needs to do some improvement with his sex scene writing, or just omit them. Just say that, like, just start with the beginning when they are like beginning to have sex and then cut to the next scene, because it did not do the book any favors, let's just say. Now, it did not ruin the book for me, for sure. It just made me like, so I would still recommend it. I would still recommend the book, like the Empire of the Vampire, which is the first book, and then this one, Empire of the Damned. I still think they are very good. And I'm giving this 4 stars, even though it was a little bit silly there. The third book I finished was Pandora's Jar by Natalie Haynes, which was my nonfiction pick for the month, and it was excellent. Like, I find it sometimes difficult to rate nonfiction. I think I've said that before, but it was everything I wanted it to be and more. So it just is kind of feminist re-examination of some of the Greek myths, or some of the women in Greek mythology, and she just does it really well, and she's just kind of asking questions and kind of making us more think about how things were, or how the women were depicted in Greek mythology, and maybe that there would have been like reasonable explanations for a lot of things that happened, and like the unfairness of how characters were judged depending on if they were men or if they were women. So I really enjoyed it, and 5 stars. Then we have the 4th book that I finished, and that is the book by the Icelandic author Halldór Laxness, the Nobel laureate. And this is a memoir that he wrote when he was an older man. And it's his childhood memoirs from early childhood until he is about 12. And it has not been translated into English. I think it has been translated into German and Danish, some of the Nordic languages, but not English for some reason. But I really enjoyed it. So Halldór Laxness does not, like, if I was asked to explain him, I would not say that he was funny. Like, his books are not funny, but he is hilarious in this memoir, and his stories from his childhood, how he like explains things and tells about things and tells these stories, it's just hilarious. I laughed and laughed and laughed. But so I enjoyed it, and 4 stars. Next we have Villette by Charlotte Brontë. So this is the last book from Charlotte Brontë that I read. I've read her other 3 books. This is part of my Reading the Bronte Sisters project for the year. And I would say that this is my 3rd favorite. Definitely not a favorite, but not my least favorite either. So actually, as you can see, I have this here, physical copy, but I actually ended up listening to almost all of it on audio. And I really enjoyed that. It was narrated by Davina Porter, and she just did a really good job. The thing that I'm noticing with Charlotte Bronte is that she enjoys to use French in her work. Now, French, there's absolutely nothing wrong with the French language. I used to study French in high school, and I was quite good at it, in high school. I wish I had kept up with it, because I can read very simple things in French. And sometimes if it's in the right context, I can kind of figure out maybe what they're saying. But I cannot read French. And so, it's like so annoying. In this, in here, there are like translations at the end of the book. But obviously not with the audio. I don't know. I mean, I don't know, actually. I think I may have to give it a few more weeks before I actually know if I enjoyed it or not. At some point in the fall, maybe in July or August, I'm gonna do a video where I talk about all the 7 books by the Bronte sisters, and maybe then I will have formed a more articulate opinion about this book, because there were things about it that I really enjoyed, and there were things that were just like, boring. And then there were things that were just obnoxious and just... So, yeah. 3 stars. So I have 2 more books to talk about. The 6th book that I read in the month of April was The Woman in Room 3 by Laura Dowers. So this is supposedly I don't know what it is. It's a historical fiction for sure, and it's supposedly a crime mystery. But it was just so boring. I listened to it as an audio, and I don't know, maybe the audio wasn't all that good, but it was so boring. Nothing happened. The mystery wasn't even a mystery. It was just so predictable. The main character was obnoxious, and just... It was like... Obviously not... I hate it when you are reading a historical fiction and the thinking part, like how the main characters are thinking is so obviously modern. Like the author is not able to make the characters seem real in the time period. I didn't like this book. I don't even know why. Why did I not DNF it? I don't even know why. It was just so boring. Very boring. 2 stars. I'm giving it 2 stars. Because obviously it was still not boring enough for me to stop listening to it. So there was obviously something there. So 2 stars rather than 1 star for sure. But no, did not like it. And then the last book that I finished in the month of April was The Man Who Would Be King by Rudyard Kipling. I don't even know what that was. It's a short story, I think, rather than a novella. And so I chose this book. It wasn't on my TBR. It came up in my suggestion or something in my audiobook app. I don't know why, or maybe I looked for it, I'm not sure. Because Rudyard Kipling won the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1909. And he was actually the first non-Swedish person, I think, to win the Nobel Prize. The first non-English speaking, for sure. Mario, what are you doing? My cat here. Sorry. Yep. no, Mario. Are these pillows in your way? Sorry. Yeah? Yeah? Let's say hi. Oh. Hey. Mario, you know? So that was Mario. Anyway, so the what was I? The Man Who Would Be King by Rudyard Kipling. Yeah. So this book. Apparently, there are some men who want to go to a place somewhere in Afghanistan and try to become kings there. I did not like this book. I mean, I think that I probably chose the wrong book by Kipling to read, because he wrote good books like, The Jungle Book and some other books I can't remember for children, and some pretty good like short stories. He was born himself in India, when India was part of or being colonized by the British, and so he wrote some books that are based there. But I'm definitely going to need to read something else by him, because this was not at all interesting or fun or enjoyable. It was an hour and 50 minutes or something, or less than that even, so it was quite short. So I figured I would just finish it, and then at least I have, read it, but I didn't enjoy it. I don't know, the audiobook also wasn't really fun. It was very like the narrator, and yeah. But yeah, and then I'm like, am I gonna give like a Nobel laureate 2 stars? But yes, I am, because I didn't like this book. There were then 2 books actually that I didn't get to from my TBR that I really want to read, and first of them is Dark Age by Pierce Brown, the 5th book in the Red Rising saga series, and I am currently listening to it as an audiobook, and I will be I'm obviously carrying it with me to May, and I will tell you all about it at the end, when I wrap up my May reading. And the other book is Les Miserables, that I'm actually reading in the Icelandic translation, and I am actually almost done with it. It's taken me like much less than I thought, because it's just a quick read. So I'm here. So this is what I have left. I have this book and just the tiniest bit of I don't know why they did this. So Les Miserables is actually 5 volumes, but for some reason they put it into 4 volumes. And I can see like volume 3 seems to be super short, at least in the Icelandic version. So I can understand why they didn't want to have that as a separate volume, but it's confusing to me. But yeah, so I'm almost done with the fourth volume of like the original volumes that Hugo did in his books. And yeah, so I will also be talking about that in my May wrap up. But yeah, that's that. It wasn't really that good of a month actually to be read. Like the books that I read, apart from I think Dubliners and Pandora's Jar, there was nothing outstanding. The other books were okay for sure, but nothing brilliant. So, but still, I had a good month, and I was able to read more than I was afraid I would be able to read, because April was just one of those months for sure. But anyway, I think I'm gonna end it now. Thank you so much for watching, and let me know what you've been reading. Have you read any of these books? What did you think about them? And let's have a chat in the comments. Thank you again, and see you in my next video. Bye bye.